I'm going to show you guys how to get started on your color wheels. So first up, I've already kind of lightly drew in my guide. It's kind of small, but do your best based on the piece of paper you have. And we're going to start with both places where the primary colors are. So primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. So red goes in the middle, it goes on the edge, yellow and blue. And I've just taped off the edges of the cells so that it doesn't bleed over into the next color. And this is really helpful if you want it, like you're going to let it dry first and then you're going to come back to it. So I'm going to start by using the primary color straight from my watercolor pan. So I've got my watercolor brush and get it nice and wet. Try not to make it too transparent. Use as little water as you can. You want it to be a nice and red, a deep red. So I'm going to start on the outside. I think that's kind of the easiest place to start. Squeezing out some more water. And I didn't tape the inside because it's like easier to not bleed over. I just taped it where it might touch another color. So you don't need to worry about taping the outside or the inside, just the edges. So that's my red. I'm going to let that dry completely before I pull the tape off to go for the next color. And I'm going to do the inside red while my brush is still red. I wrote the letters of the colors that I'm painting it to kind of help me as a guide. You are welcome to do this, or you can just use the visual guide as your visual, whatever you prefer. So I've got red on the inside and red on the outside. So I rinsed my brush to make sure it's nice and clean before I go to the next color. And I'm going to do blue for the next color. And I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to do the outside one first. And I know there's two different shades of blue. You can just pick whichever one you prefer. And I'm going to let that dry before I pull off the color or the tape. And then for this one, I'm just going to go ahead and pull off this piece of tape so I can do the inside blue. It should be dry enough by now. So you want your color wheel to be as neat as you possibly can. The neater and stronger you paint the lines, the better it'll end up looking. And then I'm going to move on to my top color, which is yellow. So I want my brush to be as clean as it possibly can be. Otherwise, you're going to get like a green if you still have a little blue left on your brush. And you might want to change your water cup in between colors as well. Yellow. And I'm going to pull off this little piece of tape here. And then the top triangle here should be yellow as well on the inside. So these three colors on the inside are red, yellow, and blue, which are your primary colors. And then here we're going to do orange, purple, and green because those are our secondary colors. So we can remember that the ones in the center are both primary and secondary. So I'm going to move on to my secondary colors. But before I do that, I'm going to take off these little pieces of tape and I'm going to save them so I can just reuse them as I move around my sheet here. So I cut these with scissors and to get like nice straight lines. So I just want to save these so I can reapply them. So my next set of colors, I want to do secondary colors. So I'm going to do orange. So I'm going to use this tape again to tape off my next set of boxes. Orange, purple, down here. That one doesn't really stick. Green. And then I'll do the inside ones as well. So I've retaped them off. And I know your watercolor pan has every single color, but in order to do a color wheel properly, you are supposed to mix for your secondary and your tertiary colors. So I do challenge you to mix blue and yellow to make green rather than using your green straight out of the pan. So I'm going to go ahead and use this little cup that comes in your watercolor set. Is a really handy little mixing cup, and it should rinse really easily. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull a little bit of color from blue and yellow. And I think it actually makes a more interesting tone of green than you can get straight from your pan. So once you've mixed plenty of your color, you can go ahead and paint that on your sheet here. And then don't forget your inside one. And that is called a secondary color. So you're just going to keep going until your entire color wheel is colored in. So I would start with your primary colors, move on to your secondary colors, and finish up with your tertiary colors. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me.